council meeting is now called to order. If you would, please stand. Put your cell phones on silent, please. And Councilman Sam Jenkins will lead us in an invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilman Everson.
Father God, we just thank you for this day. We thank you for your blessings. Father God, we just lift up our city as a whole. And we just thank you for all of the good things that are happening in and out of the city. And Father God, we ask your blessings on the mayor of this city, the members of this council, our families. We pray for all of the employees that work day in and day out to make the city a better place to live. Surely, oh God, we lift up our citizens and we pray for their success. We pray for their safety. Just pray also that your Holy Spirit today will guide our deliberations as we make decisions that impact the city and impact the people who live here. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
You will join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Ms. McCullough, Mr. Everson,
Here.
Mr. Oliver Jenkins, Mr. Corbin,
Here.
Mr. Webb,
Here.
Mr. Shine,
Present.
Mr. Sam Jenkins.
Present.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Conference September 23rd and City Council meeting September 24th.
Second.
Motion by the Vice Chair, second by Councilman Sam Jenkins. Please vote. That is 5 yes, 2 absent.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Vice Chair.
I would suggest that at our next council meeting, we would have the Director of Public Buildings to come up and give us a prayer.
We can do that.
She finished from a good Christian school. Baylor. They work on you in the operating room, and then they pray for you in the churches.
I'm going to make a note for the next meeting.
That's
for that
right.
prayer.
Get your prayer ready, Cheryl.
At this time, we're moving into awards recognitions of distinguished guests. I'll kick us off. I have a lengthy list here, but first I'd like to recognize Mr. Lane Calloway with the Historic Preservation Committee and have him come and give us a brief report.
Mr. Chairman, how you doing?
Good.
Lane Calloway, 9677 Catawba, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71115. I'm the chair of the Shreveport Historic Preservation Committee. Excuse me. And per the ordinance, we turned in a report. Although it covers this in 4 months, but we want to start that process.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that all council members received an electronic copy of that document already.
We have. Yeah, I just wanted the council to know that we were impaneled on June 27th. We have met each month thereafter, and we have done our bylaws. And in the October 15th, which is next commission meeting, we'll be doing the design review guidelines, first draft. Also look at the first draft of the Shreveport Shreveport Registry of Historic Places. That will include also the how to list properties, how to designate local historic districts, and get that process going. Secondly, we have also asked, we meeting with Mike Wood on the 14th, the day before, and he would also give us a presentation on the 15th about the demo process. So we understand that. And also, we are starting the process on the 15th for the certified local government designation for Shreveport. And so we started off again on June after we got impaneled, and I think the commissioners and I we understand the seriousness of the mission, what we're doing, and we started, I think, a good start. So heading out on it. Subject to your questions.
Certainly appreciate the work that's been done so far and look forward to the commission working to educate the council on what the difference is between historic areas and historic buildings and just things that may be old. Because I think that's something that certainly we need education on as well as the public.
We do.
And we look forward to learning more about that.
We are looking at an education outreach, and we have talked with some of the department heads already, and we would like to sit down with all of you and give you that orientation and so forth. Also, we're reaching out to the neighborhoods with the historic districts, and we have attended some meetings, but we're going to get on their calendars so we can get there and understand what they want to do and how they can help us and how we can help them. It's a partnership. So we welcome the invitation to come and talk with the council again, and one-on-one and also in group, and do some education. Although I think this wise council knows a lot.
Mr. Chairman, I think that's an excellent idea to go into the neighborhoods, and I'm finding out that a lot of our high school kids don't really know anything about the history and the historical value of our community. I would hope that down the road, you as the chairman and maybe a couple other members from time to time could get the time to contact Captain Street, Bird, Green Oaks, Fair Park, Booker T, Ure Drive, some of these schools, and I know the principals would let you all come in and maybe speak to a class, maybe a small assembly of students after you get your program up and rolling. And because I've just been shocked, we have a lot of high school kids who really don't know anything about their city. And and we're talking about people staying here, and we're talking about people being able to appreciate the city. The more you know about your town, about your city, the more you have a tendency to appreciate it. So I would hope that you would go back and discuss that with your committee, and somewhere down the road, you all could put that on your agenda, especially the major high schools. I guess I left Southwood and Huntington out, and Sam, I don't want you to feel bad about me leaving Huntington out. That's in Sam's district. That's no, we share that.
We share that.
Yeah, we share that. We share that.
Now, excellent idea, because historic preservation gives us a sense of community.
That's
The
true.
old buildings, each building has a human story.
That's true.
For example, you're talking about Fair Park High School.
Right.
Built in 1928, American colonial revival architecture, style of architecture, and it was part of a bigger movement in the 1920s that looked at Mediterranean and American revival. You look at some of the buildings downtown as well as Fair Park to reflect that, what was going on nationwide. So it's part of the story, Shreveport, indeed.
And and it's amazing because I know when Jeff went to Bird, I mean Jeff carried his A game to school every day, so he was up on the historical aspect of Bird. But you have a lot of kids at Fair Park have no idea, no history, knowledge at all about Fair Park, and I would hope that this would be one of you all's objectives and goals, to spread this throughout the community, and it creates a community awareness, and it creates an appreciation for our community. So
Indeed it does.
I would hope that you all would do that.
Can do.
Thank you, sir.
In addition, and I see you've got your outreach and education efforts on there. That's great for your upcoming goals, and the creation of the advisory council, also a great goal. And I'm particularly happy to see the focus on the local certified government application. And feel free, as I'm sure y'all know, but feel free to reach out to me if you have any need for assistance in getting that completed. I know that that's something of a process, and if there's steps that we need to take as a city in order to make that a successful process, it's something that in the long run will benefit all of us. For those that aren't maybe as familiar with this program, the Certified Local Government is a designation that a community gets when their local policies are in line with state and federal policies. And it makes you eligible for a large number of programs, foundation funding, federal government funding, different things that, different opportunities that we don't have right now. So it's an important designation to have, and it's a great goal, so I'm glad to see that on there.
And also many, as you know, many grants.
Yeah.
You can apply for many grants that will help us educate, help us outreach, help us do things for historic preservation in Shreveport.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir.
A couple other quick things that I have. As I told Councilman Everson a couple of days ago, it was another busy weekend in Shreveport, especially in downtown Shreveport, and there were more activities than there was time to do those activities. So congratulations to everyone involved with the Louisiana Film Prize, as well as the Red River Revel on their first successful weekend this year's run. Also, all the folks who participated in Shreveport Bossier Night Out Against Crime. I know a lot of work went into setting up those parties. At about an hour in, the rain put a damper on. In my district, there were 14 parties on the schedule, and I think we made it to 2.5 before the rain came in and dispersed everybody. I also want to recognize October 3rd, Pastor Tim Jones and the staff at Atkins School organized a neighborhood meeting in Cedar Grove to address education in Cedar Grove, and asked me to attend. It was a good meeting to talk about the future of Atkins School, the only neighborhood school left in Cedar Grove, and plans they had to visit with the school system and try to keep Atkins School open. I'd like to thank Ms. Regal and especially her work crews for trimming up the bushes that had grown into the running trail on Clyde Fent. Now myself and other runners can run without having to knock things out of the way, and I appreciate the effort that they put into that, as well as Mr. Harris and our streets crews for the work they've done on East Kings Highway the past 3 or 4 weeks. That is both in District C and District D, and some major bumps in that road are now nice and smooth, and I certainly appreciate it along with other drivers. And lastly, I should say that through the miracles of modern medicine, both the chair and the vice chair are a year older at this meeting than we were at our last meeting.
Thank you.
Councilman Sam Jenkins.
Thank you. And Art is 2 years old.
Well, it's certainly a miracle for Councilman Joe Shine, I tell you. It's wonderful to see you a year older.
Oh, no,
Councilman
Sam,
Shine.
thank you.
You and Councilman Webb bring a lot of wisdom to this council. So we just want both of you to know how much we appreciate you.
Thank you, Sam.
We have scheduled 2 meetings to update residents of District G on council action. The first of those meetings will be this Monday, October the 14th at 6 o'clock at Bilberry Park, and then that Tuesday, October the 15th, we will have the same format of a meeting at Cockrell Park, and we certainly want to urge our residents to come out and be in attendance at these meetings. The meetings will begin at 6 o'clock p.m., and we will end those meetings promptly at 7:30 p.m. Because we value your time. We will be discussing a variety of subjects, and we should have as many of the department heads as possible, or some representatives of various departments at both meetings that we have planned. This will give our residents an opportunity to have a face-to-face meeting and dialogue where they can voice their concerns about the things that are going on in their various neighborhoods and communities. So we want to urge you to come out and be a part of the meeting. Bring your concerns with you. It'll give you an opportunity to also maybe get some business cards from some of the department heads or representatives, so you can do some follow-up concerning your concerns. And we will be dealing with a variety of subjects. We have extended some invitations to Comcast and representatives there to come out and talk about their services as well as their community involvement. We've extended an invitation to Shreveport Green to come out and talk about an anti-litter campaign that they will be undertaking here in the city of Shreveport. We also will have the usual comments concerning jobs in the city, as well as public safety and property standards. We have representatives and time to talk about all of those issues, so we want you to come out. I had a meeting on yesterday, Mr. Chairman, with some of the representatives of the nonprofits that administer the Shreveport Water Assistance Program. I know many of our citizens know that you will probably be seeing some increases in water and sewer rates. That's the reaction I generally get when I go on that subject. But at any rate,
TV up there. IT.
at any rate, we're certainly not needing to discuss or criticize any of that. We're going to be talking more or less about assistance that we can offer to those persons who may be impacted in some kind of way as a result of those increases. So this would be a meeting where we could talk about a variety of subjects. I want you to come out and please be a part of it. Just as the chairman stated, I also want to commend all those persons who involved with the street projects that are now underway in District G. We see work that's being done on Lake Shore as well as Juella and some other areas there in the district. I know that the traffic may be a little inconvenient as a result of it, but just know that this is tax dollars that are at work in the district for you and what we're going to be doing. Mr. CAO, I have been working with SWEPCO concerning street lighting there at the intersection of Pines Road and Greenwood Road. I am being told that SWEPCO has made some of the repairs that need to be accomplished to get the lighting back up, but they're indicating to me that maybe the city has some involvement that may need to be there. So I'm not 100% sure about that, but if we can get someone to look into it. I was out there a couple of nights, and it was very dark at that intersection. If we can have someone address the lighting in that area, that certainly would be appreciated, and that is a concern that has come in. So just once again, I want to thank everyone who's working on the roads in District G. Long overdue, but we're there and we're getting it done, and we want to certainly invite our residents to come out and be a part of these meetings. These meetings are for you, and this is our way of bringing City Hall to the community and to the neighborhoods. So you would have an opportunity to talk to the people that you have elected, as well as those persons who have been appointed or employed by the city to represent you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you,
Mr.
Councilman
Chairman,
Jenkins.
I just want to make, Dale, I want you to hear this. I just want to make one statement to Sam. In the next administration now, it would be nice if you would instruct Mr. Harris or somebody in his office to check around the city, because I've had people to call me, and we have quite a few. You brought it to my mind. Street lights that are out and inform SWEPCO.
Absolutely.
So I'm bringing this to you, so as a citizen in a year or two from now, I don't want to be calling your office all the time.
Any other recognitions from council members?
We will pass it on, Councilman Shine.
Okay.
And as well, I know that.
I'm just throwing it out now, Mr. Harris, so you might want to, you might want to kind of do it earlier, so when somebody new get in office, you can say, well, hey, look, we doing it already.
And in talking with SWEPCO recently, because in downtown, some of our, they have the kind of historic looking light fixtures. They're a little bit different. And there's a few other neighborhoods in my district that have, sort of the old style of street lights. And I think sometimes we have a problem stocking those bulbs. Appears to maybe be a problem. At least that's what SWEPCO says. So if that is the case, if y'all could let me know what we need to do about either that, or if it's just general bulbs. I'm not exactly sure what their response was, but they said that sometimes, it's that they're not getting the message from the constituents directly, which we can take care of by passing it along pretty quickly. But sometimes they run a shortage of the right type of bulbs. So if we could maybe look into that.
We'll check into it, Stan. I know it's taking good notes back there.
Great.
We'll follow up on it.
And Mr. Sibley,
Yes, sir.
follow not only downtown or in Jeff District, but I have some lighting out in my area that's a little different from the normal, on the metal poles and
Yeah.
and I know that would be one of the things that Stan will put on his agenda, you know, to have somebody to, and that, and because I'm saying this, but maybe I don't have no business saying this. A lot of times they can't check them in the daytime.
Right.
You know, they have to check them at night. You know, because I've had one or two people. Well, you know, we checked that the other day. You know, you can't check the street lights in the daytime.
And it is helpful just to follow up if the citizens know that each pole has a number on it, so when they call, whether they call down here or whether they call SWEPCO directly, oftentimes giving them that pole number would be very helpful. And if they can't read it, the address, we can work from that also, but certainly those poles are numbered.
And I think Councilman Everson has certainly had success with this, and I have too. If you go on SWEPCO's site, you can report a poll out, and I think we've both seen like 24-hour turnaround in a lot of cases.
Very quick turnaround if you use their online reporting tool. But again, the important thing for citizens to keep in mind is getting that poll number. Because if you can give them the poll number, they'll get out there real quickly and they will get it taken care of. But you got to make sure and get that poll number. The other thing, if I could, is I had asked the police department to talk to us a little bit. There's been a rash of car thefts in the South Highlands area the last couple of weeks, and just wanted to see if we could get a little bit of an update on that situation.
Sure. Hi. Just real quick, and I'll start with probably the most salient point, is that in the past 24 hours, we've actually recovered evidence that has led us to the identification of a suspect that we are going to arrest in connection with at least one of those crimes. Now, let me be clear that at this early stage of this inquiry, it wouldn't be prudent to say that he would be responsible for more. Now, obviously, as the investigations move forward, that's one of the things that the detectives are going to be doing, is looking and seeing if this individual is responsible for other similar crimes in that geographic area. So we are hopefully very near to an arrest. They tell me that if they don't have him in custody today, they will seek out a warrant through the Caddo Parish District Attorney's Office, through District Court, and then he will be entered into NCIC, where we can hopefully locate him in very short order. Now, as far as what we have been doing as proactive measures, our Community Response Unit and our Community-Oriented Policing Bureau have been working very closely with our detective office, have run several special operations directed specifically at focusing on theft from autos in that area. And certainly we don't want to do or say anything that could potentially compromise the operational integrity of any of those investigations, but be assured that we are working to be very proactive in addressing those crimes. So overall, and just to kind of give you some context, citywide, vehicle burglaries are down a little bit this year, in particular when we look at District 5, which is a very big district. You know, obviously not just relegated to that South Highlands neighborhood. Crimes such as theft from auto are down year to date. We're up last month. Now, clearly, statistics are important to us, but at the end of the day, I can tell you that they're down, and if your car's been burglarized, that doesn't mean a lot to you. But however, we do look at those numbers. They help us to identify emerging crime patterns as well as to officially allocate our resources too. So hopefully we'll have a rest here in pretty short order and working to make a determination if he is indeed responsible for other crimes.
Are y'all feeling like, because I know a comment that I'd heard from some people in the community is that maybe they're maybe posting it and complaining about it to their friends and maybe posting it on Facebook, but some people aren't reporting it to the actual police department. Or y'all, you know, and I hope that problem's sort of changed. I think the word, I know the community leaders over there had been trying to get out the word to people to make sure and report every vehicle theft. So I hope that those are sort of trickling in better now.
Yeah, and that's a challenge that we oftentimes face, especially in crimes like this. A lot of times we get this, you know, we don't know how to call the police. If it's not a 911 call, if we see something suspicious, how do we call the police? And we work very hard at trying to empower neighbors to learn about our non-emergency number. And a perfect example would be, I don't know if y'all remember, I think it's probably been 2 years ago, we had a residential burglary issue that popped up in South Highlands. And ultimately we had detectives, we had community liaison officers, had community response officers, all these folks out there working on it. And what broke the case, so to speak, in that parlance was a concerned citizen seeing something that could be construed on the surface to be very minor, that reported it to police. We got out there, caught these folks, and ultimately led to, I think, I cleared 15, 20 residential burglaries. So the bottom line is what we try to get out there to people is you never know what you might prevent by making one call. So hopefully our CLO is going to be working with those neighbors, and especially that neighborhood association, they're very strong, and urging them to call our non-emergency number 673-BLUE. Same kind of deal as Crime Stoppers. We don't need your name, just your information. We don't have caller ID on that line. If you'll just give us the information, even if you don't want to get involved, that's going to help us tremendously.
Great. And then I guess the other thing, I think that one of the things we might want to make sure the CLO is sharing with folks as well is to lock your cars. A lot of these, at least in the early phase of this problem, a lot of these cars were unlocked, and certainly you don't want to. I mean, it's not as if somebody deserves to ever have their car broken into. They certainly don't deserve it, but it certainly makes it harder for somebody to get into your car if it's locked. So.
Yeah, and another thing that when we're talking about crime prevention, the three things that we look at are desire, ability, and opportunity. That's what the criminal has to have to commit that criminal act. He has to have the desire, he has to have or she has to have the ability and the opportunity. And the first two are very hard for a citizen and neighbor to control, but what we can control is our exposure to that opportunity. And certainly locking doors is important, using all the tools that you have available to you to prevent those crimes. However, what's probably more important than even locking your doors and using those tools is not leaving valuables in your car.
That's the number one thing.
It's
That's
imperative.
the number one.
And the example, Ms. Shine, that I use is, every day when I go home, I've got a laptop, I've got a tablet, I've got 3 cell phones, I've got all this gear, and you've worked all day long, you're tired, and you're in a hurry, and your wife's calling you to do this or do that, and it really takes a conscious effort to get all of that expensive items out of your car. However, and certainly not, the onus is on the criminal. In other words, we're not saying people are wrong for being victims, but what we're saying at the end of the day is there's some small steps that you can take that will ultimately help to reduce your odds of becoming a victim.
That's true.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all so much. And if you could make sure that the president of the South Highlands Neighborhood Association, Cliff, I think he's...
Mr. LeBlanc?
Yeah, I think he's looking for a response sometime soon.
Yeah.
So if y'all could get...
We'll touch base with him, and hopefully once this arrest comes to fruition and we get a little bit more information, we can share that as soon as we can with the Neighborhood Association.
Great. I sure appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Before you go, I'd like to pass, I want to pass this on. If I may, it's confidential contact that needs to be made. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Any other recognitions by council members? If not, before we move to city business, a quick administrative matter. Because the mayor's out of state, I am serving as mayor pro tem, so I will not be voting today, and I believe I voted on the minutes, so I would ask that the clerk amend the minutes to correct that vote. Mr. Sibley, on to you.
Doing well, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of notes, as I indicated yesterday, and you just did, the mayor is out of town. They are wrapping up the intercity visit to Birmingham. As indicated, the mayor led a delegation of about 50 or so of our local community leaders, including representatives of our public universities, the Parish Commission, the Biomed Foundation, research doctors from LSU, the Downtown Development Authority, SHRAC. All these folks were involved, and their focus in the visit was on higher education and the medical community, as well as community development. I understand they are en route back to Shreveport, should arrive some point late tonight, so we'll wish them safe travels in returning from that visit. Mr. Chairman, you covered most of the events for last week, but I did want to note one. We often, when we talk about employees, everything comes back to salary, but we're also challenging our Human Resources Department to do a lot more in the area of training and other morale boosting type activities. Well, last week they had their 4th Women Motivating Women's Conference that went off very well. A lot of our female leaders in the city were recognized, including department heads and other supervisory personnel, as well as just some regular employees in the organization. But I wanted to particularly note that the speakers for the occasion were 2 folks who are here in the chambers. That's Barbara Featherston, the Director of Water and Sewer, and the Assistant CEO, Ms. Sharika Fields. They both did an outstanding job, and I really wish you guys could have been there to hear them. What we'll try to do going forward is give you guys much more information on these type of activities, because employees get a big kick out of seeing you guys come there and really pull for them. They know that you support them, and we'll try and do a better job of making sure y'all know about those type activities so that they can see out there and see us out there and know that we appreciate what they do. But I wanted to really give the Human Resources Department kudos for pulling off an outstanding conference on that. We also had the Small Business Summit, and a lot of you attended that. Karen Barnes did a lot of work there. I wanted to certainly recognize her for that, and everyone else. There were a lot of sponsors. The amazing thing when I was down there, a lot of the sponsors, and these were huge companies from this region, guys like Centerpoint out of Houston, who were really appreciative to the city for inviting them in. I thought that was kind of neat, because as I told them, we really appreciated them coming. But outstanding event there also, and just wanted to note that. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
And before we move on to communications relative to city business, or I guess as we move to that, I know I had told some people that we may hear from Pratt and Allied or Republic today. Would you go ahead and make the announcement about they will be here next week? And what
Yes,
they will
Mr.
cover?
Chairman, we did reach out through our Public Works Department, our Director Stan Herrick. We did reach out to the Pratt, Mr. Walters and the representatives from Pratt. They indicated they could not make this meeting, but will be here on the next council meeting. So we anticipate they will be here. They'll be prepared to present information and certainly address any issues that the council would like to bring to them.
And I know in some communication that you and I have been a part of, I would encourage any citizens who are listening today, if your recyclables are not picked up, please call and report it.
Exactly.
Because one of the things that we found is there are instances where week after week after week somebody's not been picked up, and there's absolutely no record of that ever being reported. And they need to call Public Works.
They can call the mayor's office, they can call Public Works, or they can call directly out to Pratt. Correct, Stan? So either one of those numbers, we'll all get it to them.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Dale. Let's move on to communications relative to city business.
Mr. Chairman, I have one, and I'm going to ask Shelley if she would, just to remind everyone about the David Raines rehab project that is opening soon. So we want to be sure that everyone is aware of what's going on there and the activities that are coming up. Thanks, Shelley.
I believe you all have received an invitation for next Tuesday at 11 o'clock, and we hope you can join us. It's been a long time coming. David Raines has been under renovations. It's actually sort of been out of since the day we built it in some form or fashion, and about 18 months ago we completely closed, and almost 2 years now actually, and we will be reopening, and the center looks beautiful, and it's exciting. At 11 o'clock we'll do a ribbon cutting and have hot dog kickoff and have our senior citizens come back for the first time. They've all been going to Bilberry, and then at 4 o'clock that afternoon our after-school program, and our children from our after-school program get to go back to where they're used to being. And so we hope that you can join us at 11 as we cut the ribbon and reopen that recreation center.
Shelley,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to get Dale one-on-one, if we could have that contest, if you could.
Well, that basketball floor will be new, and y'all could break it in.
Right. And then I want Ron sitting on the side, getting ready to come in after
After you dust me off.
yeah,
Mr.
after I
Chairman.
dust Dale off.
He was about to say after he passed out.
I think y'all ought to take on the Jenkins brothers maybe in a little game. from now
Well,
on
I
this
mean,
year.
Mike and I will now, you know, we
I can tell you that.
Mike and I won't
Get
be
the mayor to
backing
post
down.
up.
I don't know how Mike
Why
got
you
in
got
this.
you got Mike instead of Ron? You changed partners all of a sudden.
Well, no, I saw Ron, I saw Mike kind of leaning up and Ron was leaning back some, so. you
Mike
know.
had that point guard look.
Yeah.
Mr.
Mike want
Chairman,
to be point guard.
we're also prepared when it's appropriate to do the budget overview. Just let us know.
Go ahead and do
when-
it now.
Go ahead and do it now. Okay. I'd like to call on Assistant CEO Sharika Fields, who in addition to being an excellent speaker, also has done a good job in putting together the administration's budget, and I'll ask that she present it at this time.
And she's an accomplished dancer too.
Yes, she
So-
is.
Do y'all have the books to pass out? When are y'all gonna pass the books out?
Sent them up.
We've submitted them to the council on October 1st.
Y'all got them up there?
Yeah.
And I just had to pick mine up.
Nobody has him yet.
Oh, okay.
You're the only one that got here.
Yeah, it was Ron. I'm the only one that picked this up.
Okay,
Ron, yeah, man.
okay, there it is. All right, Mr. Chairman and members of the council, I want to start with this budget overview to talk about some of the budget assumptions that were made going into this process. Overall, the 2014 budget is about 2% more than the 2013 budget, and this is mainly due to increases in the debt service fund, the enterprise fund. It includes a transfer to the reserve fund, and the capital budget's increases are mainly due to increases in the airport improvements. And this is just outlining the dollar amounts for each of those funds. Again, mainly increases to the enterprise funds and the debt service funds, which I will go into those summaries shortly. This chart shows general fund revenues since 2010, and the numbers do not include prior year fund balances, and they don't include some revenues that came in 2010 and 2012 that were for certificates of indebtedness for equipment purchases. And just to look at this trend and to see where we are for the 2013 forecast, we are assuming that sales taxes will end about the same as 2012 at $113 million. And then also, although we budgeted for the UPL reimbursements to be about $1 million based upon finance, the draws that we've received so far, there could be a couple of $100,000 more that may come in from those revenues that may improve where we are at the end of this year. And for 2014 budget assumptions, we're assuming very conservative projections, taking sales taxes to be about 1% more than where it was at 2012. It also includes a transfer of $4.56 million from the minor arterial capital project. As of right now, $5.4 million has been encumbered for Phase 1 streets projects. So that would make the total of general fund revenue as presented to be $208 million. Also included is $1.5 million for transfer from the streets special revenue fund, which would be maintained as the current budget year. And it includes increases for EMS due to the EMS rate increase, and also increases from UPL reimbursements. Due to the elimination of the Bossier City Solid Waste Collection, this is $1.3 million that are not reflected in the 2014 budget. There's also reductions in oil and gas royalties, and there's a 3.5% reduced amount from the Riverfront Fund into the general fund. 2013 budget included spending of $208 million, and the 2014 budget projects a 1% decrease from that. And it includes reserves that are about 3% of total spending. What's included in the budget is a 5% healthcare increase and 2% increases for our public safety for longevity, which totals about $1 million. It maintains fire and police pension deficit at the 2013 level. And also it has reductions from the overtime and fuel expenses and other expenses related to the Bossier Solid Waste Collection, and overall departmental appropriation reductions and about $2 million in notes payable that is not included in the 14 budget that will be paid off in this year. This budget was approached to continue reductions from 2013. Each of the departments were guided and requested to identify their core missions and functions and to do a detailed cost analysis to find where each department could reduce its appropriations by about 5%. Each of the departments have those cost analyses, and they will be able to present those details during the individual budget review sessions to discuss what impact those would have. The general fund targets were set to restore operating reserves, and also with the commitment to grow them annually into future years without eliminating people or without reducing services. However, what was found is that additional reductions to the budget would pose some risk to either people or to current services or operations. This chart that's outlined at the bottom, it shows that if we take out the transfer from the minor arterial program that is currently factored in. Reserves at the current general fund spending level would be 1.4 million, which is about 0.7% of spending. So this top row identifies reserves as a percent of general fund spending. So if we look out toward the right, if we go more toward a 2011 level of reserves of 10 million, then that would be 5% of general fund spending, which would require an additional $8.8 million in reductions to the budget compared to what was presented currently. So this shows just a picture of what would be required in additional cuts if we wanted to boost reserves without the assistance of the minor arterial program funds.
One question, since you started with 5%, is that 5% that you've got in bullet number 3 above that 10 million, or is it above and beyond that 10 million?
The 5% that's within the bullet points, if the departments had reached that target, then the reserves number would be closer to about 10 million.
Okay, and so that current 1% for 2014 is the 2 million number, right?
Currently, it would be the 0.7%. And the 0.7% is the reserves as a percentage of the expenditures for 2014. So without the minor arterial transfer, reserves would be at 1.4 million.
So that's not really current, that's 2014 projection.
2014 projection.
Okay, because I was tying into that 2014 1% up of the.
Right. No, that would be
Okay.
at the end of 14.
But wouldn't it
That
be,
current is referring to spending patterns. So if there's not a reduction in the departmental spending patterns, that's what the estimate is.
Well,
Is that-
actually,
That's not what he said.
Oh, I thought,
Actually, Mr. Everson, what that represents is, what we try to do with the budget approach is focus on operating reserve, because that's been a huge topic of discussion. Based on the 2014 budget that we're submitting, if you don't do the transfer from minor arterial, then we net out, based on these very conservative revenue projections as well as the expenditures, about 1.4, 1.5 million, which represents only a 7.7% reserve. The rest of that chart is to show that if we wanted to reach a higher level of reserve, the middle line in green is the absolute dollar value. The number below that is how much additional cuts would have to happen, minus the minor arterial, and in addition to what's already been cut out of the budget.
so that's in addition to the 5% that each department head has already submitted.
No, and let me correct you, the 5% exercise was to identify the cost centers, because not every department did 5%, some have more, some have less, when it all nets out, but that was the beginning target for the exercise.
Okay.
That's totally unrelated to the bottom part. Once all the cuts have been placed in and we've submitted the budget, that's when this chart kicks in, and it shows that the 2014 budget as presented, based on all the reductions and cuts that have been done, based on the conservative revenue projections, it would net us out at about 1.5 million at the end of 2014, assuming revenue went the way we're projecting it and expenditures went the way we're projecting it. Now, we think and we believe revenue is already trending better, but obviously for budgetary purposes, we're taking the most conservative approach we can.
And that's the best way.
Yes, sir. So the main thing here was to show the impact. If we don't transfer the minor arterial money over there, then we're looking at having to do these additional cuts in order to meet one of those reserve targets.
Right. And let me just ask this in a little bit different way, taking back from another slide. Globally, we're projecting a sales increase of 1% for next year.
A little less than 1%.
Okay.
Over 2012.
No, over 2013.
Right.
Okay.
2013, we're projecting 113, we're projecting 114 for
But
2014.
2012 and 13 or
1%
something.
over 13.
Okay, so we got a 1% increase there, right? I know that's only 60-some% of the total, but, and then we've got a overall budget expenditure proposal of reducing it by 1%. So just in those two in isolation, we have a net gain of 2%, right?
In terms of,
In terms of Revenues up 1%. And
And
Expenditures
Got it,
down.
okay.
So it's a net 2. Now, and I'm guessing one of the reasons is that our total figure, when we talk revenues, we're only talking sales tax revenues. I recognize that, which is only 60% of our total revenues. I also, but you would think, looking at this chart, that our net gain would be better than 0.7%.
In terms of reserve, because that's the reserve number.
Sure,
Right.
unless we had a deficit in our reserve for 2013.
And that's the
And
question
not-
I wanted to ask is,
I mean, I'm summing that all up because what that tells me when I see that is we got to have a negative balance to begin with for us to not have a greater than 0.7 next year.
Well, aren't we also sending over less from Riverfront
Yes,
this year?
But
yes.
3%.
Yeah, and there's a chart here also that shows the fund balance, where we're projecting it to be at the end of 2013. And the 0.7% that's showing here for current, it's actually expressing the reserve of 1.4 million as a percentage of total spending. So
Right, because-
the 1.4 million is 0.7% of the total spending number of 206 million.
For 2014. That's why it's hard to do kind of that direct correlation, because
And-
all the numbers have changed. The expenditure numbers changed, the revenue numbers changed, and when you take that percentage, that's why it ends up 0.7, because it's against the 2014 spending level, not the 2013 spending level.
And Mr. Sibley,
Yes, sir.
all of this is a projection,
Yes, sir.
and,
Math don't make sense.
this might sound a little silly, but we still don't know what my friends in DC is gonna do.
Correct.
And whether we realize it or not, that will have a trickle-down effect on what our economy will be here. Because if, I said my friends, but your friends too, if we continue to have this shutdown, I mean, this is gonna impact our economy, not only all over the United States, but all over the world. We've been kind of fortunate here in Shreveport. We don't have a whole lot that will impact, but something like this is going to impact our economy. So all of this is a projection. And the other thing that if you can, we're looking at the reserve. I mean, could you kind of look at how this will impact our bonding power? Because I do know that the better our reserve is, the better bonding rates that we can get sometimes. So, would you, I mean, could you all get us some figures on that?
On how it
So-
would directly impact,
I'm sorry.
how it would directly impact a bond rating,
Wait a minute, say that again now.
how it would directly impact the bond rating.
Right. How our reserves would, directly impact our bond rating. Let's say, if we had the 5%, if we had the 4%, if we had the 3%, if we had the 2% of whatever. Sam and I was discussing that earlier. I think when he wanted to trim off a little bit and put in the reserves, and also our bonding capacity would be greater, but
That's
at that time, we really didn't have any figures on that. Is there any way you could get us some figures back on that?
We can try, Mr. Sean. That's really in the eyes of the raters, in terms of how much they penalize you or not. But even in addition to that, just as a best practice for fiscal operations of the city, it's recommended that you have a reserve of a certain amount of time, just like at home, to cover expenditures. So we're trying to address it from the fiscal condition of the city also, so that our balance sheet looks well, and we look as though we are prepared in the event we have an emergency. So it impacts the bond rating.
I
but
understand,
also-
right, I understand that, but also, when you talk to people out in the community, where they got these bad streets and all this other bad stuff, you start talking about, putting it in reserve and all this kind of stuff, they don't really understand what you're talking about. So, and I understand that this comes from the Raiders, but being in the financial world, I mean, it seems like y'all ought to be able to get us some information. You know, now this is, you know, I know you can't get us true information, but you can get us some projections. I mean, that's just like the sales tax. I mean, you can't really tell us what it's gonna be.
Right.
I mean, all this is projection.
Right.
So, you know, if we could get some figures, if you could, you know, call up some Raiders. I mean, some, you know, I mean, that's what y'all do.
We'll see what we can
You
do.
know, if y'all can't do it, I mean, you know, we can ask Art to do it. You know, but because we need to have some figures on what we need to put in reserve. You know, because when I talk to people and say, well, you know, we got 5% reserve, they say, Joe, I'm knocking my front end out of line on your reserve. So, you know, I at least need some figures that say, look, you know, we're going to do a bonding, and this is what we can save the city. If I'm making any sense to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do this if we can. I don't want to break Ms. Field's momentum up too bad. Let's let her go through her presentation. I'd ask each of us, as we have questions, to write them down,
Okay.
and then we can come
That's
back
good.
and do some questions and answer then, if that's all right.
Okay. I'll keep going. This is the general fund that I'm going to overview now. And again, it's 1% less of the 2013 budget. And here's a summary of available funds chart that I've just mentioned. And it starts with the actual fund balance as of January 1, 2013, that came from the audit, which was $6.4 million. And the 2013 estimated revenues at $203 million. And total available for expenditures is $210, including the revenues plus the fund balance. 2013 estimated expenditures at $206 million, which we have talked about, and of course been working with the departments to maintain budgeted expenditures at 99%. And that leaves us with a fund balance that's estimated for this year end at $4 million. And then adding back the 2014 estimated revenues at $208 and the estimated expenditures at $206 million. And the 206 includes the reserves amount where we would end up being with the $6 million in reserves, which includes the transfer from the minor arterial project. And just a quick summary on each of the general fund departments, starting with the executive office, generated a 1% decrease from the and all of these are compared to the 2013 budget. And legal has a 3% decrease, reducing some training and travel and supplies. Property standards has a decrease of 10%, which includes reductions to contractual services to offset that with a new grass crew to be able to assist with monitoring. And they have no transfer in other funds because their notes payables was all paid off in 2013.
Must be being picked up.
Human resources budget is essentially unchanged. Information technology is reduced by 2% due to a few vacant positions that have been unfunded, and then some reductions in materials and supplies. SPAR's budget is increased by 1%. They have fully funded utilities, which totals about $2.9 million of SPAR's budget, and some of the decreases that SPAR was able to generate was offset by the increase in healthcare expenditures of 5%. The Finance Department decreases 4%. General government decreases 1% from 2013, and this fund includes all of the transfers to other funds, including MPC, Sports Tran, Risk, Community Development, and Golf, and then also a few of the public agency appropriations. It's increased by $60,000 to fund for truancy, and also for the Independent Stadium scoreboard replacement. The police department budget has no change from 2013, and The police department's budget includes $49 million in personnel line items, and this was also including the 2% longevity increase. In 2014, they will be funding 27 officers that were previously grant funded. There was significant reductions in notes payables and other appropriations, which was slightly offset by the healthcare increases and longevity increases. For the fire department, personnel line items total $45 million of this budget, and it is essentially unchanged from 2013. There's a slight increase that's factored in here for transfers that will be needed to match for the UPL participation, and then it's also offset by reductions in notes payables and other appropriation reductions. Engineering was overall increased by 8%, which is mainly due to funding for vegetation management. And Public Works is decreased by 4%, which includes decreases in expenses such as overtime and fuel for Bossier solid waste collection, and then also reductions in notes payable. And it includes the implementation of a bulk collection program. And the City Council's budget is found decreases of 3%. And City Courts, the budget is increased by almost 10%. However, its expenditures do not exceed the revenues that are generated within this department. And City Marshal's budget is for personnel salaries only, and it's unchanged from 2013. Internal service funds, retained risk, the 2012 audit had a negative fund balance in retained risk, and it was reviewed about a couple of months ago on if a transfer would be made into the general fund, and it was noted to note the negative fund balance and to take measures to, in future years, begin to fully fund claims and decrease the severity of claims that come to the fund. The 2014 beginning fund balance is negative $3.6 million, and the total revenues to the fund from the general fund transfer and enterprise funds and other revenues and transfers total $10 million. And then less the liability and claims, then the fund balance that's projected for the end of 2014 is negative $3.5 million. The special revenue funds, Riverfront Development's budget for 2013 included a $1.7 million negative fund balance, and this includes decreased gaming revenues of approximately 3%, and there's a transfer to the general fund that was decreased by 3.5%, civic appropriations at $945,000. And it also includes economic development funds for Shreveport Economic Development Authority and also NLEP and MSI, totaling $700,000. This fund also includes transfers to the convention center and $300,000 to community development for summer jobs. The overall budget is increased by 6%. And that's mainly due to the increase in the fund balance. The Downtown Entertainment District budget increased by 3%, mainly due to the increase in operating reserves. And it also includes funds to hire a full-time program manager for the district. Grants, police grants and environmental grants are included in this fund, and it also includes recently $200,000 that was added for Cross Bayou Corridor for planning and development. And the Shreveport Redevelopment Agency had a small fund balance at the end of 2012, and estimate reserves for the end of 2014 is $4,100. The MPC's budget's reduced in total by 14%, and this includes the city's operating subsidy of $1 million, and there is an $87,000 remaining within this subsidy to be able to go toward completing the UDC contract. And then also the parish will fund its full share of the UDC contract within 2014. And community development budget is $9.7 million, which includes $887,000 from the general fund for matching funds for grants, and also includes $300,000 for summer jobs. Community development pays back $380,000 to the general fund for indirect costs. The streets special revenue fund, the 2013 year-end estimate fund balance is $2.7 million, mainly due to the transfer of $10 million to capital projects and adding in the revenues from the SWEPCO franchise fee, and then less $1.5 million transfer for streets maintenance, and then also the appropriation of $3 million for street reconstruction. It's estimated to have an ending fund balance in 2014 of about $4.2 million. For the enterprise funds, golf will resume its operations at Huntington Park, which is mainly due to the increase in the budget of 16%. It receives a general fund subsidy of $87,000. Airports has an increase in their budget of 11%, mainly due to an increase in its operating reserves by about $2.2 million compared to 2013. Its total revenues are up 11%. And water and sewer has budgeted its rate increases for 2014, and the increase in their budget includes those increases in operating reserves of about $6.7 million estimated for the end of 2014. It also will fund an additional 35 positions for the consent decree.
Wait a minute, say that again.
Water and sewer will add about 35 new positions to be able to do work related to the consent decree.
But those are, I'll wait till the end.
Okay. In Sports Tran budget, revenues of $3 million, and it includes the city subsidy of $6.1 million, which is about 6% reduction from 2013. Downtown parking budget increased by 15%, and its revenues are a total about $620,000, and operating reserve estimated at $655,000. The Convention Center operating subsidy, SMG's revenues were just slightly better than 2013, and the transfer will be $1.7 million for 2014. The Convention Center hotel budget is a negative, that's a negative $1.37 million. The total payment, so will go toward debt service, including a contribution to the enterprise fund from the hotel of $352,000, which is significantly less than what was budgeted for 2013. The 2013 contribution was estimated at $1.6 million, and what the Convention Center Hotel estimates that it will actually contribute is about $500,000 for 2013. This in addition to the state hotel sales tax rebate funds of about $900,000. It leaves the hotel enterprise fund with a negative $3.7 million estimated operating reserve for 2014. And this is just within the enterprise fund itself and does not include the reserves of the capital side of the hotel or the hotel management operations. And lastly, in operations budget is the debt service fund, which totals $90 million, and the debt service that will come through this fund totals $28 million for 2014, with a reserve of $61 million. And the increase in the reserve is due mainly to the collection of ad valorem taxes that have not been offset by debt service. The millage for 2014 is 22.05. And a summary of the capital improvements budget, which from 2013 is increased by about 2.8%. And this is mainly due to increases in airport improvements. The capital improvements budget also includes adding projects for a new Fire Station 14 and new Fire Station 17 in lieu of the Superstation 814 project. It also includes the reduction to the minor arterial asphalt program of $4.56 million. And that concludes the overview of the operating and the capital budgets. And this is just what tentatively is scheduled going forward within the process. And we understand that there will be departmental budget review sessions on the 9th and 16th that the departments will be prepared for.
Questions?
I guess I have a couple, but I'm not trying to get in the weeds, but I'm trying to understand how we get to a few of these numbers. So that's the nature of my question. So if you went to the slide that is summary of available funds, this is where I want to start. Okay. When does the $4.5 million transfer occur in this slide? Does it occur in the estimated fund balance December 31st, 2013, or does it occur in?
As the budget's presented, it occurs in the 2014 estimated revenues as a transfer from the streets fund. So it's included in the $208 million number.
And that's where we go from 203 whatever and change on your one graph to 208 here is that?
The transfer.
Okay. Next question, can you go to the Public Works slide for me? On the Public Works, we've got about $1.3 million less in revenue from the Bossier tax, right? And so we'll call that a revenue figure. And then we've got a reduction at 4% of what would have been a 4% of 37 is, so about 1.3. So it's pretty much a net even in terms of you give up that revenue, but the expenses are somewhat a wash.
About a net, right.
Okay. And then when it says implementation of bulk collection program, what is that?
That's the non-containerized stuff that we're still picking up. You know, one of the things that Public Work has done pending, you know, the final discussions between the council and the mayor in terms of that
I remember
program.
those meetings.
Yeah, what they've done is actually implementing a program to do it systematically, including some software that will allow people to get appointments and get in the trucks and the trailers that can actually go out and be more responsive to picking those items up. But it would be all the non-containerized stuff that now we're having to kind of make do and get.
And so, just so I'm clear, and not that I'm so worried about typos, but the one bullet is implementation of bulk collection program, and the next bullet is reduction. Okay.
Correct.
I wasn't sure if those were somehow related in some total program that I didn't understand where the notes were associated. Okay.
When we get our budget books, there'll be more of a breakdown about what that implementation is projected to cost.
Exactly.
Okay. The riverfront now?
Riverfront.
The plus 6%, we have a reduction in gaming revenues estimated at 3%.
The 2013 budget for Riverfront had a negative fund balance of about $1.7 million. So the 2014 budget, including the revenues from 2013, makes up for the negative fund balance and increases it to $930,000. So the increase is mainly due to the fund balance amount.
Okay, Can you, sorry about that. Okay, so we got a negative fund balance at the end of 2013, right?
At the end of 2012.
Okay,
So the budget for 2013 includes a negative fund balance of 1.7.
so what is our end of 2013 fund balance in the Riverfront Fund? Isn't it a negative right now?
For the end of
It's
2013,
projected to be negative.
just very slightly.
I mean, okay. Then, though we have reduction in revenues, how are we getting our reserves higher unless, I guess, we're transferring less?
Correct.
The
The
general fund
reduced
and
transfer
the
to the
civic
general
appropriations.
fund and a slight reduction to civic appropriations, also a slight reduction to the convention center subsidy.
Gotcha. And then, I guess it's a little bit of a misnomer that the budget is greater.
Because it does include the fund balance.
Whereas it was offset by the
Yeah.
negative in the prior year.
Gotcha. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Sure,
While y'all
yeah,
do-
yeah, I'm
No,
just
no,
going
I
through
mean,
mine.
since you want this, I'm just trying to be clear. There are no other transfers that are coming out of the riverfront development other than this? There are no other debts or anything being paid out of the riverfront development other than what's being presented here? I thought at one time there was some notes or something that was being paid out of this.
I don't think there
Well, you maybe,
are any notes, debt service
You-
for the, there was, is what Charles is explaining, but
But those
there's
have been
not any
eliminated
debts
now?
coming out
All
of
that's
it
been-
currently.
I think that was closed at the end of 2011.
Independence Bowl or something.
I can't remember what it was, but there was something that, I remember a capital thing that was closed. Sorry, I'm just looking at another number. I don't have a question on it though.
I'm just a little concerned about the civic appropriations because those are the funds that would generally help a lot of the organizations in the different neighborhoods. 'Cause I know Mike is probably gonna have some organizations coming from his area
It hurts.
looking for a 10 or 15 or $20,000 grant. And I'll probably have something too, Mike. I just
I thought it was 250.
I just hope that, and I'm saying this to the administration and to the council, I just hope that we would kind of toe the line and just kind of say, just kind of make sure that we're fair to all of the organizations across board. Because, Mr. CEO, if we don't, that's where the politics of this come into play. And we don't want to get our hands too open out there playing politics. So I'm hoping that, and I'm kind of saying this to Jeff too, because I think Jeff chairs that committee. I kind of hope, Jeff, that we would look at the civic appropriation from strictly kind of an analytical standpoint.
Yeah,
Because if we don't, we're gonna start getting ourselves in some hot water. Because we used to have quite a bit of money. A few years back, we had quite a bit of money in the civic appropriations, and we could take care of a lot of community-based organizations. So, I hope, Mr. CEO, we don't, because I guess it's more on us than it is really on you all. But I would hope, and Jeff, since you chairing, and I think I'm on that committee, and I think what Rose
is on
McCollum,
there.
right? We gotta make sure that we toe the line
gonna
on
be-
that, because if we don't, we're gonna get in a little trouble.
You're right, Councilman Sean. It is always a tough decision. It will be a particularly tough decision this year, and that there are even less funds in there. So one thing to keep in mind, when we have, right now we're looking at this civic appropriations budget of $945,000, and then, we're required by state 200,000 of that goes to one organization. So we're really looking at a discretionary amount of less than $750,000, which this year I believe our requests for civic appropriations totaled 1.7 million. So that's $1 million worth of requests that are not getting funded, and people, no matter what. And so we need for people to understand that while that money is always hard to come by, it is much harder now than it used to be. So you're absolutely
And
right.
that's what I'm saying. We got to make sure that we look at those criteria. Did we look at? I know one time we had said we would look at maybe the possibility of this $200,000 that was just mentioned, to see, because of the economy, and we might be able to cut back on some of that. Did we? Because I think that was put into the into legislation back during
Senator Tarver.
yeah, as Oliver's good friend, Senator Tarver's days, you know, to see if, because the economy has changed since then, and did we look into?
Yes, sir, but right now, we're still obligated to give it.
Right.
You know, and unless and until, you know, it's changed in Baton Rouge, we're obligated to give it to that organization.
But, you know, of course, I'd hate for us to look too hard because they may give us less for it. And then, you know, it's pretty much net for us. We get what they give us and then we push it out through here.
Right.
So, if we can convince them that it only needs less money, they may convince us that they only need to give us less money.
Well, we might need to tell them too that, hey, you know, we got more people eating out the pot than what we had, than what was eating out the pot during that time. During that time, if wasn't that many people eating out of the same pot, and then we was getting more money from other places. Do that, and even with the riverboats, I mean, and that's basically where that money comes from. It comes from the riverboat. I mean, they don't have the same kind of funds,
Right.
that they had. So, you know, it just might be something for us to look at. I mean, I'm just gonna look at, you know,
Get our lobbyists on
now,
that
Oliver,
next
this is the only thing that I'm conservative about when it comes to money, because I never had any.
And I think the other thing about the civic appropriation line is we've talked about it the last couple of years, and as we continue to see budgets get tighter, at some point, we have to begin to have that discussion
Right.
about what's our responsibility to be funding. If there are programs that are duplications out there or that are solely getting by on our fundings, we got to have some hard discussions and hard decisions. And, you know, we've moved that way, but backed off. And it's getting tougher every year. And I think that we're going to really have to take a serious look at that.
Yeah, I think we, I mean, I know we passed a sort of a more rigorous application process. I don't know that that's been implemented, but we did pass it.
A lot of work went into that.
We hope to
Yeah.
implement that this coming year.
I hope so
I
too.
mean, we're gonna have to.
Councilman Albertines, did you have any more?
I do. I have 3 more slides I want to look at.
Okay.
It must be on your street special revenue slide or special revenue fund.
From the fund balance.
Okay,
That's what it's made.
the 1.5 million, obviously we did that on an annual basis to the general fund for maintenance. The 3 million appropriation for street reconstruction. Either I'm forgetting or what is that from?
It was included within improvements and equipments within the budget, and that amount was maintained, but I don't believe anything has been spent out of it this year.
Thinking about bridge reserve,
What,
which is
okay,
be available for expenditure.
so, okay,
It is a liability.
you mean we transferred,
Now, where the,
or-
I'm trying to figure out where this premium comes from. Because
We'd have had to transfer
I-
3 million.
I'm not sure, I guess I'd like us to look at that, because I'm having a little, I mean, I'm not saying I couldn't be mistaken, but when it says there's a $3 million appropriation for street reconstruction, I have a feeling we're mixing a capital project in here with this, but maybe I'm mistaken on that.
And it could be, Shreveport, if I'm not mistaken, this is just a continuation of what was done.
For
this year.
2013.
That's
And
the 3 million that we,
It's appropriated within improvements and equipments for 2013, and it was left the same way for the
Right, we simply
2014
budgeted it the
budget.
same way. Obviously, you guys can move that around
What
for
did we
budget purposes.
appropriate the $3 million for in 2013?
remember we took it out of reserves.
I'm not sure what it was
put there,
for.
And then came back and moved it back out.
Not concrete.
We put it in during the
concrete
budget
overlay?
process, and then came back and took it back out.
Otherwise, it would become a part of the fund balance.
Yeah, and I guess I'd like to nail that down, because we didn't, I remember, okay, Mike's got a good point. At the beginning of the year, there was, when we went through the budget last year, we went through this discussion about taking reserves and putting more reserves in the special revenue. And then, I don't know if we ever really did it or not, because there was some discussion about that's too risky because our reserve number isn't high enough. And so, I think that was, I think I was maybe the proposer of that particular piece of legislation, was instead of having whatever our reserve number was, to take some of that, reduce that reserve and put more in the streets.
Right.
Then I think either, whether that amendment passed or not, I have a feeling that that was transferred back out at some point.
I think it was.
But that, do you remember this whole discussion?
I don't remember.
In your earlier years, you would have, but I could see that.
If that's the case, though, you'd simply have 3 million more on the balance.
Which might negate the requirement for this other 4.6.
Because really, yeah, from our perspective, wherever it comes from, it really doesn't matter whether it's from here or from the other. We just identified the one that was most easily to identify, but it really doesn't matter.
I think with that one just needs a little trail on where that started from and where it ended up over the course of the year.
We'll track that.
3 million went back to reserve.
Well, I believe
I think
it did. I mean, I think it did. And what I'm
We had a
saying is
big
the way this
discussion on
thing's,
that. We had a big discussion on that.
We'll track it.
and what I think is we made, the whole little issue on that 4650 may be mitigated significantly by this 3 million. But I don't want to raise everybody's hopes here. I just have that as a note.
And we'll check it too, Mr. James.
Okay. Can we roll to water and sewer question here? Obviously, we know the rate increases. The 35 additional positions, now are those contracted or are those employees? And the only reason I say that, on my retirement system thing, I worry a little bit about that, particularly when it's for a fixed period of time. But maybe it is contractual services and it's the way it's written.
These are permanent positions. These are for operation and maintenance positions. These are for the folks that go out and maintain our system. One of the reasons that we're in this position that we're in right now is because we don't have the people to maintain our system. It's not going to do us a lot of good to spend $350 million on our sewer system and then not put the personnel in place to maintain that system. This is significantly less than we've had folks come in and do evaluations of how many people we should have based on the miles of pipeline, the size of our plants, and this is less than half of what they recommend we should have. We've evaluated our organization. We've looked at what we needed. These are specifically for crews to TV our sewer mains, which we will have to do forever. We will have to TV, 10-15%, clean our system every so many years. We can't do that with the crews that we have. So these are permanent positions.
Isn't it less expensive to contract it out? Is it less expensive to contract something like
It is.
that
It's
out?
very expensive to contract those
It costs more to
services
contract
out.
it out?
It costs more to contract it out. When you look at what we pay our folks, in the field, it's not a whole lot. Most of our folks are making $20,000 to $25,000 a year, maybe a little bit more. The equipment that goes with it, contractors and other folks are making more than that. We're trying to, again, we are putting a tremendous amount of money into our infrastructure in capital to fix our systems. And if we don't come back with the people that we need to continue to maintain that system, we're going to be right back where we started, and I don't want to be there. Our department, over 10 years ago, had over 400 people in our department. It was cut to the point where we're now under 300 people. You know, we need those folks to maintain. I don't have a crew to go out and actually mow right-of-ways so I can maintain those big right-of-ways for those big interceptor sewer systems that we can't even get to because it's a forest right now, because it hasn't been maintained in years. We're going to have to, as part of the consent decree, we are required to, when we have an overflow, and you guys have seen the reports, you see how many overflows we have. When we have an overflow, we are required by the consent decree to video that sewer main within 24 hours. We have one TV truck right now and one TV crew. When you have a rain event and you've got 10, maybe 15 overflows, we can't get to that with one TV truck. We can't even do the maintenance we need with that one TV truck. So this includes 2 more TV crews. And a TV crew is not just a truck with a guy on it. It's 2 people, in addition to the wash truck that goes with it, because you're out there because you have to wash the mains, and a vac truck to remove those solids from those lines. And there's people that go with those trucks, having 2 more crews.
And I'm certainly not suggesting, I mean, I just have to say that there aren't, based on reading of governmental agencies today, you rarely see the cost benefit long-term on a municipality or government agency where they're encouraging adding more full-time personnel. Now, I'm not saying this isn't, I'm just saying that when we look at where we face on our retirement system and the burden of those people, that it's surprising to me, and I obviously haven't done any of the numbers on this, that this is really in the best long-term interest of the city. But I don't know that.
Well, these would be then permanently contracted folks, because this is what we feel we need, and this isn't even 50% of what we've been told by consultants that you really should have based on other municipalities. We've been shorthanded for years and years and years, and that's why we're having the problems we're having right now. And I'm more than happy to answer whatever questions.
I'm just saying, my other concern would be, we are funding a program. My understanding, we are funding the program with these increases for about 12 years. And what are we going to do with these 35 positions after those?
They're going to maintain those facilities. They're going to TV and clean the lines like we're supposed. Yeah, they're going to maintain. These are maintenance folks. These are folks that are on TV trucks, wash trucks. These are folks out at our treatment plants. I think we have 120, 130, almost 130 lift stations. Right now, I've got a crew of less than 15 that maintains that 120 lift stations. We can't do it.
Let me just...
I know where you're going, Councilman, and I can talk to you a little bit about that. I know what you're asking.
At the end of the 12 years.
Right. Where's the money to pay for these additional
I understand
folks?
that the rates, there's going to be some consideration sending those rates back down.
They won't ever go down. I mean, right. The stamina won't be.
You won't need as much money at that time.
But they're not gonna ever go down.
But you're still gonna need some for the O&M that's built into that process, because you gotta keep the O&M going. So even though they're reduced to take out that bulk of 350 million or whatever, it doesn't mean you gotta reduce it all the way down to 0 and have no money coming.
But now, Dale, to be truthful with you, as long as I've been around, I've never seen
Public safety.
Taxes go up, rates go up, and they come back down. And to be true with you, because we won't be around, but the water bills are not going to ever go down no more.
That's what he says.
I mean, I know we sit here and say that. Right. We sit here and say that in 12 years, well, we're gonna readjust your water rates again. But I've been around long enough it's very seldom. They start saying that with gas. Gas is you know, we're gonna run this gas up and when we get another supply and we start drilling more, they're gonna go down, they might go down 6 cents, 7 cents, 8 cents. But Dale, to be true with ourselves, I mean, the water rate, and because I can understand what you're saying, you need those people so we won't get back in the same fix that we were in before. So I mean, to be true with you, I can understand that, and I see what you're saying. We do need them, because if we don't, instead of water rates going down, they're gonna go back up again. I mean, we're going to move it up again, because everything is going to increase in cost. And so I can understand what you're saying, and I would hope that we would leave something in place where 15 years from now, 20 years from now, we wouldn't have to look at spending another $350 million. At that time, it's going to be $600 million. And to be truthful with you, I know we're getting a few jobs in here, Dale, but I don't see the economy here in Shreveport growing that much. You know, it has not grown that much since I've been down here. I've been down here right at 30 years. And our economy of this city has not really grown. If it's anything, we don't have the money that's coming in now that we did back then. So, I mean, I can understand what you're saying. And Mr. Chairman, I think we're going to have to look at that, because if we don't, we're going to be in the same position again.
And what we can do is break down in terms of what's the actual cost for those positions. So as a part of your evaluation, you know exactly what those 35 positions will cost, so you can factor that in.
And I think the thing that, you know, certainly this is the first time council has seen anything related to the budget. And in all of our discussions about consent decree and water rates, we never specifically talked about additional positions. What I'd ask Barbara is, when we get to our departmental budget meeting, if you would be prepared to talk about the pros and cons of 35 additional people in this year's budget versus maybe 50% of those this year, 50% next year, and the impact that it would have on your department, in case we need to look at some alternatives.
And I'll get you the cost of those. The cost of those employees is not, it sounds like a lot of folks. Again, most of these are MS1s, MS2s, maybe MS3s, very few management. And what I consider management is still fairly low paid compared to the private industry. It's not a significant increase with regards to the budget. When we went through these rate increases, we had talked originally about the rates including a 25% increase in our O&M budget. We reduced that when we did the last set of proposals for rate increases down to a 15% increase. I think this plus the equipment and everything else we've asked for is close to an 8% of our O&M budget, and even though we've asked for 15%, and that's what's built into the rates.
Thank you, Barbara.
Last one for me, debt service. That, assuming tranche 2 is the rest of the GO bonds, what is that a year approximately cost us? I mean, obviously, you can tell me the rates are a little different or whatever. Is that 30 million bucks? What is that?
I'm not sure. I think the first tranche was about 6 million a year. So the second set was 93 million compared to 81 for the first set, maybe just a little bit more than the 6 million per year. I'm not sure exactly how much the debt service would be on the second sale.
Is Charles in here? Does he have, I mean, a rough estimate? The reason I ask is, I understand the intent of having a $61 million reserve number in there. Obviously, you want to make sure, you had enough coverage for at least one more year's worth of revenue to pay off both what's currently on the books plus the additional, and obviously we know some's going to come off the books, hopefully in 2014. I don't know exactly about the restructuring of Convention Center and the rest, but maybe we're still over milled.
When we reset the mills last year, it was done with the assumption that the second one would be done, and we were figuring about seven and a half million for that debt service. So we are actually collecting that money, even though
Understood. I mean,
we assumed we would start paying it this year, and obviously we aren't. So that was worked into that calculation, which is why it is going up versus staying level, because had figured we'd have that debt service there now.
yeah, and I guess, and ultimately, there's a lot of things on looking back at, reducing that millage. And I do agree that we should wait till we actually sell those bonds and know what our rates are and be able to project it before we do it. But it's certainly something that, looking at those numbers, even if you're putting another 7 or 8 million on it, somebody could certainly argue that we're slightly over milled at this point.
Yeah, I mean, based on what we were looking at, we have one debt service or one GOB that pays off in 16, and then it stays level until 19. But we would figure we would be able to reduce it again in 2 years, and then look at it again 4 more years after that. And after 19, it will be significantly reduced based on our current debt.
What would it be a councilman in 19? Just, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles.
If those councilmen leading up till then have maintained the city in such a condition that it is not in dire need of additional debt service.
There's a lot of ifs along the way there.
It's gonna be in need. You don't have to worry about that. Like I said, I've been here a long time, and every year they say, well, we're gonna pay it off, and we're gonna have every 3 or 4 years you're gonna have more needs coming on. Because actually, when we look at our street program, I mean, Dale, what we're doing now, 21 million, even 40 million. I mean, even to fix the streets like we really need, and Mr. Harris will tell you, we probably need $250 million to start making a difference in our streets. And this is something that we're going to have to continue to do from now on. I keep on calling Sam. Sam, I'm not going to call you no more. I guess I'll call Art. Art might be running for mayor. But Art, I mean,
we have to remind him, he forgets everything.
I support that.
I'm going to be quiet. I'm not going to say all that, Art. But actually, I mean, and Dale, you understand, I mean, our needs are gonna continue to increase. And Jeff, I know you're chairman of the infrastructure committee, but Mr. Harris will tell you from working many years in Kansas City, I mean, it never goes down. It always goes right. It always go up. As long as I've been here, all of it has never gone down. It has always gone up, and that's kind of one of the reasons why our streets, our infrastructure is kind of in the shape that it's in, because we have not really spent the money that we need to spend for our infrastructure. It's gonna, the expense is gonna continue to go up. I know, and I ought to tell you, Mike, I thought maybe the less hair he had on his head, he started getting bald headed, the barber wasn't gonna charge him as much. But he goes back, he didn't have as much hair to cut, but you had to pay what, the same price, and the barber's going up on it. So, I mean, our prices, and I mean, our expenses are not going down. I'm through.
Ms. Phillips, would you go back to that summary slide that had all the ending balances for a couple of years on it? And I know we need to move on to other things on our agenda as well, but anytime you build a budget, you build a budget as big as what we have and as many variables, there's that house of cards structure to it. And I think the thing that continues to worry me is that December 31st, 2013 estimated fund balance. Although $4,048,000 is not a ton of money. We have no assurances really that that's where we're going to be. We've seen a good revenue report this past month. We know what's happening with riverboat funds. If that number gets cut in half, then it kind of changes the whole playing field. And unfortunately, it's evidently very hard to track that number on a month-to-month basis. But I just think as we move forward in our discussions, that's something I want us to keep in mind is, how do we pinpoint that number as close as we can? Because we're really basing a lot off of that number moving forward. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Thompson.
In the retained risk fund, it appears that we are appropriating in liability reserves a minus $3,785,500. And on this end, we don't think we've ever seen that before. And we need to have some discussions about that. And I bring it up now because of the House of Cards thing that you're talking about.
Okay. No debate. Thank you, Ms. Fields.
Okay. Is that it? Thank you.
All right, I believe that brings us to reports. Does any council member have any questions? Or Dale, I'm sorry, were you finished with city business?
Oh, yes, sir.
So long ago. I feel like we've been on it for a while. Does any council member have any questions or concerns relative to property standards? If not, Mr. Sibley, I believe that brings us back to the revenue collection plan.
Yes, sir, and we've already talked about many of these items, but just point out the latest sales tax collection report actually shows for the past month, the city of Shreveport, an increase of 3.5%. We're at about a less than 1% differential between 2012 and 2013. And in light of your last comment, Mr. Chairman, that's one of the things we emphasize, that we use very, very conservative numbers in terms of wrapping up 2013 and going into 14. Because we project the sales tax to be about the same as this year, you see we're less than 1% away. So we feel okay about that. It was a great opportunity than we felt a few months ago. The past couple of months we've had about 3.5% per month, so we think that bodes very well. I also gave you all the class breakout so you can get an idea as to where the growth is and where the negative lines still are. And I'll just note, it looks like retail really saw a big increase. Restaurants and bars, grocery, and other food stores. I'll note things like hotels and lodging went down. Manufacturing went down. Health services went down. Automobiles seem to be holding their own. They've been pretty steady for most of the year. So not only do we feel a little bit better about the sales tax numbers because of that differential is really closed. When you look at the other revenue, you notice that we've actually exceeded what we budgeted for 2013, except we adjusted the budget to account for the UPL, the EMS additional funding. And on the chart that's reflected there, you notice this chart is built based upon 1.75 million. When Charles gave you all the report yesterday indicating that we've already collected right about 1.2, and we still have another disbursement that we think will be anywhere between 750,000 and an additional million. So as the trend has been the past couple of years in other revenue, the guys up in compliance are doing a good job, and we're actually seeing an increase beyond what's been budgeted. We saw it last year, we saw it the year before, and we think we're going to see it this year. So the numbers look pretty good there. There's still some outstanding projected dollars out there in terms of property tax, some of the other line items there, particularly EMS, the check writing fees, water collection fees, other fees that are non-budgeted. So all in all, we think that we are on track to meet those projections for this year. And at the same time, as Rick indicated, we're still monitoring the departments very closely to keep the spending down at a level that we don't offset any gains in collection by simply spending more. So we're still working in that arena. If there are any questions, we'll take them at this time.
Those are actually August collections?
Those actually, yes, sir.
August
reported in September.
Reported in September. Okay. I thought it was interesting, the large decrease in hotel. As many people as have spoken to the council recently about economic impact of events.
Two things are happening. One is we're getting more rooms still, and we're a little bit oversaturated right now. The other thing that's happening is their daily rate is being pushed down. Particularly, Mr. Shine was talking about the effect of the feds. I mean, Barksdale is a major driver for our hotel, the Hilton.
Right.
A lot of things have been canceled because of the activity with the federal government at Barksdale. I mean, the air show, other things like that, which were big drivers for them. But the most telling thing was the squeeze that's on the ADR. For example, hotels that were up at, say, 75, 80 bucks are having to take people at 45 and 50 bucks. So occupancy rate is going down some. Some hotels are maintaining, but they're getting much less for it. So that's reflected in, in fewer collections. Because if you looked at the hotel motel charts in here, they're all down for the past several months. But those are kind of the things that are happening with the local hotel industry that's really having an impact on us.
Any other questions or comments about the revenue collection report? Any questions about the surety bond report? We have no public hearing today. Mr. Thompson, are there any items to be added to the agenda?
We know of none.
All right, I have no request to speak on agenda items at this time. We have no confirmations or appointments to be considered today. Mr. Thompson, let's move on to legislative items on consent agenda. Actually, there are none. Regular agenda.
Regular agenda items, resolutions on second reading and final passage. Number 177 is a resolution authorizing the mayor to make application with the Louisiana Commission on Law Enforcement through the Northwest Law Enforcement Planning Agency for a multi-jurisdictional narcotics task force grant.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Sam Jenkins, second by Councilman Oliver Jenkins. Any discussion? If not, please vote. And that is 4 yes, 2 absent.
179 is a resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement with the Shreveport Business Park LLC or its affiliate to provide water and sewer services for Elio Motors, Inc. There is one amendment. Would you like for me to read the amendment?
Yes, please.
The amendment lists the date on which the agreement for water and sewer services with Shreveport Business Park was filed in the office of the Clerk of Council and incorporates the agreement as an attachment to the resolution.
So moved on the amendment. Second.
Motion by Councilman Oliver Jenkins, second by Councilman Webb on the amendment.
Tell me again. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
What does the amendment do again now?
It just puts the date that the agreement was filed in our office. And it says that the agreement is an attachment to the document.
It basically attaches a copy of the actual proposed agreement for the deal.
On the agreement itself, are these negotiated rates or?
City rates. Right?
I don't know.
I read it as
Yes, sir. They're in-city rates. similar to
in-city
what
rates
GM,
outside.
As opposed to outside.
Yeah, 'cause
And also,
they're
Mr.
double
Chairman,
outside, so.
as we noted yesterday, I don't think we've heard back. We have heard, so we are good to go. Okay. We were going to ask for a postponement, but I think we're going to go forward.
But, and I guess I should have asked this, but I assumed that the GM plant beforehand had a negotiated city rate, and I'm
In city,
assuming
yes, sir.
somebody that potentially offers that many jobs, we would negotiate.
Right.
I mean, it's the same thing we do at the port, right?
Yes, sir.
For many of those.
Exactly.
Okay. I assume that, but.
Okay, we are voting on the amendment at this point.
Mr. Shine, would you like to vote?
I would appreciate it. I would appreciate exercising my
Privilege.
duty, yeah.
And that is 5 yes, 1 absent.
So moved on the
Second.
resolution as amended.
Motion by Councilman Oliver Jenkins, second by Councilman Sam Jenkins on the resolution as amended. If there's no discussion, please vote.
Stevenson?
5 yes, 1 absent.
180 declares October 2013 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
On behalf of the.
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Everson, second by Councilman Sam Jenkins.
Appreciate the problem.
If there's no discussion, please vote. 5 yes, 1 absent.
181, declares the city's interest in certain adjudicated properties as surplus.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Sam Jenkins, second by the Vice Chair. Any discussion? If not, please vote. 5 yes, 1 absent.
182, authorize the settlement of all claims against the city of Shreveport in the matter entitled Urban Housing of America, Inc. versus City of Shreveport and Metropolitan Planning Commission of Caddo Parish.
So moved.
Motion by the Vice Chair, second by Councilman Sam Jenkins. Any discussion? If not, please vote. Councilman Everson. 5 yes, 1 absent.
Sam, the reason why I did that, I was on the council before. And I know you and Oliver are very up on legal matters.
Not as up as you are now, you.
Well, thank you, thank you.
Mr. Thompson, let's proceed with introduction of resolutions.
These are not to
Thank
be
you,
adopted
Sam.
prior to October the 22nd. 183, authorize the institution of expropriation proceedings against certain described property within the city of Shreveport in connection with the Murphy Street Park project. 184, authorizes the institution of certain expropriation proceedings against certain described property within the city of Shreveport in connection with the Murphy Street project. 185 also authorizes the institution of expropriation proceedings against property in connection with the Murphy Street Park project. 186 authorizes the submission of the 2014 through 2018 consolidated plan and 2014 annual action plan to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development.
So moved for introduction.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Sam Jenkins for introduction, second by the Vice Chair. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I want to issue this invitation to Councilman Sam Jenkins and to Councilman Oliver Jenkins. As soon as this park is built, shall they provide us with a basketball here?
You may need a wheelchair.
Oxygen tank, the whole nine.
We're on a basketball roll today.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I want to compliment community development on the process involved with resolution number 186. I know they had a number of meetings throughout the community to get input, and I appreciate that process and making sure that what's being presented is something that they heard from the citizens on. So I just want to compliment them on a job well done.
If there's no further discussion, please vote.
I think we are.
I think we did.
And that is 5 yes, 1 absent. Mr. Thompson, let's proceed with introduction of ordinances.
These are not to be adopted prior to October the 22nd. 113 amends the 2013 Street Special Revenue Fund, appropriating the funds authorized therein and otherwise providing with respect thereto. This and the next two concern $4,560,000 to increase the operating reserves. 114 amends the 2013 general fund budget, and 115 amends the 2013 capital improvements budget. 116 amends the 2013 capital improvements budget. This makes certain corrections to the 2013 capital improvements budget. 117 amends the 2013 capital improvements budget. This ordinance will add $1 million to the Hersey D. Wilson project.
I make a motion for introduction of these items
Second.
at this stage.
Motion by Councilman Sam Jenkins, second by Councilman Oliver Jenkins for introduction. Any discussion? If not, please vote. 5 yes, 1 absent.
Chairman will now take up introduction of budget ordinances which cannot be adopted prior to December the 15th. 118 amends the 2014 capital projects fund budget. 119 adopts the 2014 Riverfront Development Fund budget. 120 adopts the 2014 General Fund budget. 121 adopts the 2014 Retained Risk Fund budget. 122 adopts the 2014 Metropolitan Planning Commission Fund budget. 123 adopts the 2014 Community Development Special Revenue Fund budget. 124 adopts the 2014 Grant Special Revenue Fund budget. 125 adopts the 2014 Shreveport Redevelopment Agency Special Revenue Fund budget. 126 adopts the 2014 Downtown Entertainment Economic Development Special Revenue Fund budget. 127 adopts the 2014 Airport Enterprise Fund budget. 128 adopts the 2014 Water and Sewer Fund budget. 129 adopts the 2014 budget funding contractual services provided by Sportran. 130 adopts the 2014 downtown parking enterprise fund budget. 131 adopts the 2014 convention center enterprise fund budget. 132 adopts the 2014 convention center hotel enterprise fund budget. 133 adopts the 2014 debt service fund budget. 134 adopts the 2014 street special revenue fund budget. And 135 adopts the 2014 golf enterprise fund budget.
Move to introduce and to table, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion by the Vice Chair, second by Councilman Sam Jenkins. Any discussion? Not, please vote. And let's get Mr. Thompson a glass of water, because he just had to do a lot of reading. Councilman Oliver Jenkins.
I'd like to reconsider ordinances 113, 114, and 115, and 116, and make a motion to table those.
Which one's there? Let's go back.
Oh,
Well,
113, 114, 115, 116.
Could you leave out 116? That one is just a reconciliation between Famous and...
Oh, excuse me,
Yeah,
okay,
that's
sorry,
correct.
113, 14, and 15.
do we need to vote on our motion on the table first and then come back and do that?
No, because I still want to introduce them, I'm just saying I'd like to now make a motion to table them.
They've already been introduced, and I think
Right.
just a motion to table.
Table,
Yeah.
right.
I'd like to make a motion to
okay,
table
let's
ordinance.
wrap this up first.
But we have to take this vote, because these are two separate
I
introductions.
thought we already did. You got 5 up there.
5 yes, 1 absent.
Thank you for calling it. I need it for the record.
Thank you, B, keep me in line. Okay, Councilman
Okay, I'll
Oliver Jenkins.
second that, the table.
We discussed this yesterday, and I thought we were going to do them all at the same time, that's why.
So, motion to reconsider by Councilman Jenkins, second by
No, just a motion to table.
Motion to table.
113, 14, and 15.
Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
And who seconded that?
Seconded by?
I did.
Our Vice Chair.
I had enough nerve to second that.
Okay.
Mr. Shine? Thank you.
5 yes, 1 absent.
Mr. Chairman, we're now on the ordinances on second reading and final passage. Would you like to proceed?
Please.
105 amends the 2013 capital improvements budget. This was discussed yesterday. This appropriates the unappropriated balance of $4,244,000 from the general obligation bond sale, basically for water and sewer projects.
So move.
Second.
Motion by the Vice Chair, second by Councilman Oliver Jenkins. Any discussion? Not, please vote. 5 yes, 1 absent. All right, Mr. Thompson, number
106 amends the 2013 general fund budget. This includes a number of items, including some charges in the city attorney's office and other places.
So move.
I believe there's an amendment on this one as well.
Is it amendment?
There is on the agenda.
The amendment, this amendment will decrease personnel services by $12,000 and increase improvements and equipment by $12,000.
So move.
Second.
Motion by
Funds
the,
would be used for the purchase of software and 8 computers and monitors in the office of the city attorney.
motion by the Vice Chair, second by Councilman Oliver Jenkins on the amendment. Please vote. 5 yes, 1 absent.
So move on the legislation as amended.
Motion to pass as amended by the Vice Chair, second by Councilman Jeff Everson. If there's no discussion, please vote. 5 yes, 1 absent.
Thanks for catching that amendment. 107 amends the 2013 grant special revenue fund
So
budget.
moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Everson, second by Councilman Sam
This is
Jenkins.
It's the
Any
grant
discussion?
receipt.
Grant receipt, right? I hate to say no to that.
5 yes, 1 absent.
108 authorizes the mayor to execute an agreement granting a utility servitude to AEP SWEPCO at Quirby's Park.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Oliver Jenkins, second by the Vice Chair. Any discussion? If not, please vote.
Since I play golf out there a lot.
I know, I've seen you out there in your knickers.
Mr. Oliver Jenkins, please.
Mike.
5 yes, 1 absent.
112 is an ordinance to repeal ordinance number 11 of 1972, which created a four-way stop intersection at Cresswell Avenue and Southfield Road, and it enacts the intersection of Cresswell Avenue and Southfield Road as a two-way stop intersection.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Councilman Oliver Jenkins, second by Councilman Everson. Any discussion? If not, please vote. 5 yes, 1 absent.
Ordinance number 109 is a zoning ordinance, C-64-13. It rezones property located on the east side of Church Street, beginning 300 feet east of Church Street, from Grantham to 241 feet south of Martin Avenue, extending east. And it will change the zoning from R1H Urban One Family Residence District to R1HE Urban One Family Residence Extended Use District, limited to the stockpile of dirt and broken concrete materials and sanitary sewer flow equalization pond for this city-owned operation.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Webb, second by the Vice Chair. Any discussion?
Yes.
Councilman Shine.
Simply, I'm glad that we got this cleared up because Ron used to go out there and open the gates up all the time.
I was going to say,
Ron,
is
you
this
ain't
the
worried
Ron?
about that.
I knew that pot was going to get stirred.
Days were getting long.
I believe that vote's going to be 5 yes, 1 absent.
Amendment 1?
Yes, it is.
Number 110 is a zoning matter, C-68-13. It rezones property located on the southwest corner of East Kings Highway and Jackson Square Boulevard from R3 Urban Multiple Family Residence District to B2 Neighborhood Business District.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Sam Jenkins, second by the Vice Chair. Any discussion?
What is going there?
A hospice facility.
This is kind
Mr. Oliver Jenkins, please.
too fast. There's like a church in front of it or something?
Yeah. And that is 5 yes, 1 absent. Mr. Thompson, I think we're at 111 now.
It's a zoning matter, C-69-13. It rezones property located on the west side of Monkhouse Drive, 1,200 feet north of Westwood Park Drive, from R1D Urban One Family Residence District to B3 Community Business District.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Sam Jenkins, second by the Vice Chair. Any discussion? If not, please vote. 5 yes, 1 absent. Mr. Sibley, very quickly, I just received a high-level communication that recyclables in Apple Tree subdivision have not been picked up on its Monday delivery, or Monday schedule.
Tuesday.
Well, it actually should have been picked up Monday, and now it's Tuesday.
We are on it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, I'd like to make it clear that on 106, the amendment that we adopted is the amendment that's actually listed on the E agenda, so that our records will reflect that. I might have said something a little different, and if I did, it's the one that's actually on the E agenda.
Thank you for that clarification. Mr. Thompson, is there any table legislation to be considered today?
I'm not aware of any, Mr. Chairman, anything that would be removed from the table.
We have no property standards appeals today. We have no ABO appeals, no MPC or zoning appeals. Are there any reports from officers, boards, or committees? Mr. Thompson, do we have a clerk's report today?
I worked so hard yesterday on that, Mr. Chairman.
You've had to say a lot today, and I'm going to give you a break on that. Is there a motion for the council to resolve itself to committee as a whole? Motion by Councilman Oliver Jenkins, second by the Vice Chair. I know there's no discussion on this, so please vote. 5 yes, 1 absent. Mr. Sibley? Oh, wait, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the September 24th council meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Webb, second by Councilman Sam Jenkins. Please vote.
I couldn't go on Sunday, family impact.
5 yes, 1 absent. Mr. Sibley, are there any additional communications?
None at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any council member have any additional communications at this time? I believe that brings us along to public comments. The council will now recognize Mr. Sammy Mears.
I saw Gregory Saturday night.
Sammy Mears, 1901 Centenary Boulevard, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71101. As you know, this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. That's why I'm wearing the pink ribbon and my shades are pink. So I'll be wearing those anytime I'm out and about to represent breast cancer awareness. Now from that to something that's really hurt me during this past weekend. I believe Arthur said something about housing. Well, this past weekend on the news, I went to bed real early after 6 o'clock because I could not possibly stay awake. When I get news that they say that possibly in the month of November that housing might not get funds and that landlords might not be being paid and the tenants in houses and apartments would have to pay the full amount of rent, this really bothered me. So I went to my church at Springs of Grace, and I know, Jeff, I left you a message about that because it's really upset me very much. I told my Sunday school class at Springs of Grace Baptist Church in Singles 3 what it was that had me all upset, that I would not want to end up losing my home because I've been living over at Oak Meadows Apartments in apartment M110 for 18 years now. This place means a lot to me, and I'm sure it means a lot to everyone else who knows me well enough that my home is very special to me for good reasons. I would not want to look for another place, and I hope that everything will get resolved before October 17th. And I know, Ron, that maybe I was a little freaked out when I came to you. I just hope you could understand why this was bugging me, because when you have a place that you live in for so many years, you don't want to leave it. My home is special because a lot of people who came from my church who have come by maybe to visit me or just to take a little tour of my apartment have seen me have 6 pictures of Bob Barker in it, and several have seen the picture of Jim Kramer that I've got. And when they got to the bedroom, one of them freaked out when they saw a 24 by 36 poster of somebody going like this. Now that brings a memory, and one time the person that saw that said something weird. I said, "Now look here, ham boy," and he said, "That's homeboy." I said, "It's ham Porky Pig, and don't you ever forget it." So that memory would always stick with me in my home as to why it's special to me. Anyway, I just did not want to get the bad news that you got scoot if you can't pay the full amount, which of course I'd be willing to do if I had to do that just to keep my home. If that's what it comes down to, I'm going to. I look at my home as a place that I'm very happy with, and I wouldn't be satisfied with any place else if I had to start all over. So I just want y'all to know this, and I think when that camera was playing games earlier, maybe it kind of lit my spirits a little bit. Of course, I wasn't expecting that, but I think somebody was just wanting me to light up. Of course, that's what Paul Heyman does when he lights up a room. He leaves it. And of course, like I said, Ron, if you can just understand that if I did come on a little strong, it was not intended. But my home is special, and maybe I should have taken your advice about turning off the television. Maybe I should have listened to you. I'll try to have that opportunity. I just wanted to bring this to your attention, and I hope y'all know that if it doesn't mean anything to anyone else, it does to me. And I just want them to stop picking on me, because that's what I felt like this past weekend. I felt like these people are picking on me, and I took it personal. So I just thought I'd say something about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Sammy. I have no other requests to speak. If there is no objection, we will now reconvene the regular council meeting. We have covered a lot of ground today. Thank you, Ms. Fields, for the budget presentation, for such a short agenda. We were here for a little bit. At this point, the committee rises and reports, and this meeting is adjourned.
Thinking about it.
All right.
But-
That was real good.
You should be right.